The week started with the outgoing President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, signing the Tibetan Policy and Support Act of 2020. While it is being hailed as a huge political and diplomatic achievement for the Tibetan administration in exile, it further brings US-China relations to another step downhill. In this report, we'll discuss how this bill differs from the previous Tibetan Policy and Support Act of 2002. Take a look.
On which the yeas and nays are ordered.
On 22nd December, the United States Congress passed the Tibetan Policy and Support Act, or TPSA. It reaffirmed the rights of Tibetans to choose a successor to their spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama. This infuriated China.
我们敦促美方停止借有关问题插手中国内政，不得签署或实施有关法案中针对中国损害中方利益的消极内容和条款。 以免进一步损害中美合作和两国关系的大局。
The TPSA is an amended version of the Tibet Policy Act of 2002, which came into existence during the Bush administration. 18 years later, this became an act on 28 December as the US president put his signature on it. Other than recognizing Tibetans' right to choose the Dalai Lama as per their rituals and process, this made a clear deviation from 2002 Act. The previous version of it said that the US should establish a branch office in Lhasa. The TPSA ups the ante by changing that to a consulate.
America supports Tibet and Tibetan people. This is a historic bill, and it is a major boost to the Tibetan freedom struggle and recognizes Tibet as a major issue in the global platform. The act sends a powerful message to Beijing that you cannot continue to repress Tibetan people and get away with it. This sends a message of hope to Tibetans who are suffering inside Tibet, that we are with you, we feel your pain, we will fight for your cause.
中方注意到美国签署的有关的法律，有关于设藏的法案。 对此表示坚决反对。西藏问题事关中国的主权和领土完整，纯属中国内政，不容任何外部势力干涉。中国政府维护国家主权、安全、发展利益的决心坚定不移。
The act also makes it US policy to hold senior Chinese officials responsible for, complicit in, or have directly or indirectly engaged in the identification or installation of a candidate chosen by China as the future 15th Dalai Lama of Tibetan Buddhism to have committed a gross violation of internationally recognized human rights, attracting sanctions under the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act. This, in simplest terms, means the violation of this clause in TPSA authorizes US officials to impose travel bans globally.
我们敦促美方停止借有关问题插手中国内政，不得实施有关法案中针对中国损害中方利益的消极内容和条款，以免进一步损害中美合作和两国关系的大局。
The US-China relations hit a new low in the course of 2020. So did Indo-China relations. Tibetans living in exile in India and in other parts of the world are now caught in this tug of war between global powers.
All these are very symbolic. Somebody eating in Washington, D.C. doesn't nourish a hungry Tibetan in Lhasa.
TPSA breaks away from the past. It ensures that US foreign policy solidly upholds Tibetan human rights in key areas. But it still requires implementation to prove its merit in practice and not remain only a diplomatic posture in the global game of power struggle.
2021 for Nepal started in the midst of a political turmoil. Political instability in the Himalayan nation is not unknown, but the manner in which a party with majority in the parliament has dealt with internal bickering has brought to fore yet again the debate about monarchy and whether if the country was better off before. Take a look.
Hundreds of Nepali citizens have been protesting on Kathmandu's streets against the decision of Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to dissolve the House. Nepal's parliament was dissolved on the 20th of December by President Bidya Devi Bhandari on the recommendation of Prime Minister Oli. Parliamentary elections are now scheduled to be held in two phases on the 30th of April and 10th of May 2021. Khagra Prasada Oli continues in the meantime as the interim Prime Minister of Nepal.
सडकमा ओर्लिसक्नु भएको छ अब यो त सुरु मात्र हो यो कास्टिङ मात्र हो त्यसैले अझ धेरै बाँकी छ त्यस हिसाबले हेर्ने हो भने यो संवैधानिक कदमका विरुद्धमा अब के गर्नुहुन्छ हैन यो भन्दा ठूला ठूला संघर्षको कार्यक्रमहरू अगाडि बढ्छन् र त्यो कदम फिर्ता गराएरै नेपाली जनताले छोड्छ
जुन राष्ट्रपति जीले यो संसद विघटन गर्नुभयो संघीय संसद यो चाहिँ नेपाली जनताले दुःख गरेर ल्याएको परिवर्तन जुन गणतन्त्र आछ त्यसलाई संस्थागत गर्ने दिशा भन्दा उल्टो दिशातर्फ हामी अगाडि बढिरहेका छौं त्यसकारण चाहिँ हामी नेपाली जनताले जसरी भए पनि यसलाई प्रतिकार गर्नुपर्छ
Demonstrators demand the ousting of Nepal's interim Prime Minister amidst an escalating feud in the governing Nepal Communist Party. People have questioned the decision to dissolve the House as the Constitution of Nepal doesn't have such a provision.
प्रधानमन्त्री दुईजना एकलले चाहिँ यो जुन संसद विघटन गरेकोमा नेपाली जनता आक्रोशित पनि छन् र यो 5 वर्षको म्यान्डेट दिएका नेपाली जनताले र 5 वर्षको म्यान्डेटमा भन्दा चाहिँ संविधान विपरीत यो विघटन गरेकोमा आम नेपाली जनता यसको विरुद्धमा छन्
But the bone of contention in this turmoil is the near vertical split in the ruling Nepal Communist Party. It's a coalition of Communist Party of Prime Minister Oli and the Maoist faction led by former rebel Pushpa Kumar Dehel, known more commonly as Prachanda. KP Sharma Oli became the Prime Minister of the coalition government in 2017. There has, however, been a power tussle with the leader of the former Maoist rebels, Pushpa Kamal Dehel, who is also the co-chair of the Nepal Communist Party. Prachanda removed Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli from the post of the party's parliamentary leader and chair. Former Prime Minister Madhav Kumar Nepal replaced Oli as co-chairman. Oli was given a choice to step down, but he instead recommended the dissolution of the House to the President. While Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli is known for his China leanings, Prachanda is pro-India. China sent its emissary to the Himalayan country to mediate between the squabbling factions on the 28th of December.
中方注意到尼泊尔政局的有关动向，作为尼泊尔的朋友和近邻，我们衷心希望尼泊尔有关各方能够从国家利益和大局出发，妥善处理内部分歧，致力于政治稳定和国家发展。
नेपालमा लोकतन्त्रको हत्या भएको छ संविधानको हत्या भएको छ निरङ्कुशतातिर जाँदैछ अराजकतातिरको भुमरीमा देश फस्न खोज्दैछ फसाउन खोजिएको छ केपी ओलीजीको नेतृत्वले भुमरीमा लएर हाल्दिया छ देशलाई यो अवस्थामा सबै लोकतन्त्रवादी हाम्रा छिमेकीदेखि सबै मित्र राष्ट्रहरूले लोकतन्त्रको पक्षमा त कम्तीमा नैतिक चाहिँ समर्थन त गरिदिनु पर्छ भन्ने म अपिल गर्न चाहेको छु मैले
Struggling with a weak economy worsened by the pandemic, Nepal once again debates the probability of a better option of previous model of monarchy.
Different parts of the country, pro-monarchy elements are also showing their strength in an organized manner, demanding that monarchy, which was abolished 12 years ago, be reinstated, as that's the institution that guarantees stability in the country.
Pro-monarchy elements are organizing themselves to say the monarchy, which was abolished 12 years ago, be reinstated. While parties now seek approval for symbol and names from the Election Commission, the ball is now in the Supreme Court. Nearly a dozen petitions have been submitted by various parties and individuals questioning the constitutional validity and legality of dissolution of the Parliament House of Nepal.
As 2020 drew to a close, US outgoing President Donald Trump is in a spree to grant pardons and commutation of sentences. Well, All presidents of the US do it, but Donald Trump is different. His numbers may be less as compared to that of Barack Obama's, but he's wielding his executive powers to ensure that his loyalists are pardoned and those he believes were wronged by an unfair legal system.
On 2nd of December 2020, US President Donald Trump tweeted, "Pardon investigation is fake news." This was in response to the US Justice Department's investigation of claims that lobbyists have tried to use bribes to secure a presidential pardon. An unsealed redacted court paper from August 2020 revealed that certain individuals were suspected of secretly lobbying White House officials to secure a pardon or sentence commutation, and that, in a related scheme, a substantial political contribution was floated in exchange for a pardon or reprieve of sentence. It is common for outgoing US presidents to use their right to issue pardons, which wipe out convictions. President Trump, who is due to leave office in January, has used the procedure a number of times. On 22nd December, he pardoned 15 people, including Republican allies. A 2016 campaign official ensnared in the Russia probe, and former government contractors convicted in a 2007 massacre in Baghdad. In November, he pardoned a former US Army commando who was set to stand trial in 2021 in the killing of a suspected Afghan bomb maker, and a former Army lieutenant convicted of murder for ordering his men to fire upon 3 Afghans. Trump also commuted the sentences of 5 people, including a Republican, Steve Stockman of Texas. US President Donald Trump is using his pardon power to rescue personal and political allies. Trump's actions in his final weeks in office show a president who wields his executive power to reward loyalists and others who he believes have been wronged by a legal system.
So, Alice, it's a full pardon. It's been signed. You might want to keep that one. And here it is.
On 23rd December, the outgoing US president issued pardons and sentence commutations for 29 more people, including his former campaign chairman Paul Manafort and Charles Kushner, the father of his son-in-law Jared Kushner.
I spoke to him very briefly, but I had no indication that this was coming. I have prayed for this moment. I can't even begin to tell you how fervently I've prayed for it. And I think the president is protecting those who are unfairly persecuted and prosecuted for political reasons.
Barack Obama, whom Trump replaced in 2017, granted 212 pardons. And that's the maximum number since President Harry Truman's pardons in the 1940s and 50s. President Trump, by contrast, is yet to cross over to triple digits as far as pardons are concerned, and he has a fortnight to go by.
Welcome back to World Today. Here are some stories from across the globe in World at a Glance. Take a look.
On the first day of 2021, Britons woke up to a new year and in a country completely outside the influence of the European Union. Britain left the European bloc's vast single market for people, goods and services at midnight in Brussels time on 31st December. New customs formalities now affect all travel between UK and any country of the EU. A different UK-EU trade deal is set to bring new restrictions and red tape.
On Spotlight this week is Rahul Dubey, who's been named by Time magazine as one of the heroes of 2020, defining him as the man who gave shelter to those in need. On the night of June 1st, Rahul Dubey opened his home to give shelter to those protesters who were running away from authorities, pepper spraying them. I spoke to him a few days ago. This is what he had to say about racism and the fight for one's rights. Take a listen. 2020 has been an interesting year. A lot of heroes that we witnessed, a lot of them who've come out, helped people. This amid COVID pandemic, amid cries for democracy, protests against dictatorial regimes. Time magazine hailed many as heroes of 2020. Rahul Dubey, who's joining us today, an Indian American, was one of them for having welcomed protesters of the Black Lives Matter protest into his home when they were being shooed away and pepper sprayed by the cops. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today, Rahul. Indeed, a pleasure. Many congratulations to you for being hailed as the hero. How does it feel?
Hi, Geeta. Thank you so much for you and India Today for allowing us to share this tragically beautiful story of everything that took place here June 1st on Swan Street in Washington, D.C. Initially, I've been thinking, the feeling that I've had is humility. We've had conversations before. I've gained so much from that moment, from such tragedy, from such horror, from such injustice. I've gained a family of 72 new souls that were in this house that night for 10 hours under siege against the authorities. That night has taught me a lot about myself, a lot about the collective of people, the power of that. I never had proof. I'm an innovator myself, so I always have to prove things out and quantify them. And I never had proof in my heart and proof in this world that good rises over evil, and it does every time, and we're living proof of that. And so I've been carrying that discovery, that realization with me in my heart, and also become very close to the 72 souls that were trapped in my house under the people, from the people, against the people that were supposed to protect us. And we see that happening all over the world.
Well, Rahul, it takes an opportunity even to become a hero. At what moment did you think you needed to open that door to bring in those protesters who needed help, who were being pepper sprayed? They were in a bad state, barricaded, blocked from both ends. When did you think you needed to open that door for those protesters?
Geeta, I think I wish that it was something that I did that was calculated, that I could say was strategic, that I was very insightful around opening that door. I think the reason why this is such a beautiful collective story is the fact that we acted intrinsically, that was in our hearts. And so I didn't really have to make a decision. When you see absurdities and injustice in your face, there was no decision to be made. When you act human, I think many of us will see that we actually can become heroes when we actually act in our most primitive, pure form. So I wish I could say, yes, I analyzed all of these situations. I looked at the risk, the good versus the bad, the police, and the repercussions against me. But that wasn't the case. I saw innocent people, and I wasn't able to segment it. I saw human beings getting slaughtered on my street. We paid witness to that on the news every hour of every day. And I paid witness to it on my street. So what did I do? I did what my heart asked me to do in that moment. And that was to protect those that couldn't protect themselves.
If you could recount what really happened that night and how it went, how did you carry through to the next morning, when we saw those visuals of you coming out with them, with your hands up high, almost, cheering for the protesters and for what they stood really for?
They were trying to get home. They were pinned into my street in Northwest Washington. And without warning, after 45, unleashed flashbangs, sound grenades, rubber bullets, pepper spray, and started hitting people without warning a good 30 meters from my door. And I see this happening, and you have 400 people running as fast as they can in a tight, confined area. And all you see is innocents being decimated. And I opened the door and I just started yelling, "Get in the house, get in the house," as loud as I could. And I pinned myself between the door and the railing and held it open as long as I could, as the police are cutting people down one by one. And a stream of over 100 people came running into the house. I'm yelling to them, and I haven't been inside, and I'm yelling to them to get downstairs, get upstairs, there's a backyard. And in that mayhem, I locked the door. They're spraying pepper spray in through a giant window that I have here, after we have been securely safe from the authorities that are supposed to keep us safe.
And it is time that governments listen. It's time that people listen to each other as well. Are the 70 still your friends who'd come taken shelter? Do they still visit?
They absolutely do. And every time I think about when they do come over, which is almost every day, someone, I keep very close with 10 to 15 of them. As an innovator entrepreneur, I've supported a few of their businesses. They're extremely talented, Geeta. I've been working with a musician named Mecca. We've recorded a music video in New York and Medellin, Colombia together. I'm not in music, but as an innovator, I don't need to be into music. I just need to surround myself with God-given talent. And that's what I was being able to do that night with people like Mecca and Garrett, to be able to work with them so closely, with people I never would have normally worked with.
Well, Rahul, many thanks for joining us here in India today. Many congratulations for being hailed as Time's Heroes of 2020. A happy new year to you. He was hailed as Heroes of 2020 and was described as the man who gave shelter to those in need. Thank you, Rahul Dubey.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.